Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Watch Me Wrench. So in this episode, I'm going to see if I can get the Holley fuel rail to somehow mount and work on the fast LSXR intake manifold. I know I said in one of my earlier videos when I first got this that for time saving purposes I would probably just buy the fast fuel rail, but I don't think I'm going to do that. And the reason why is we had to heavily modify this fuel rail in order to get this return style system to work on my C6. The guys over at JTM, they actually milled ½ an inch off the backside of this fuel rail. See that? So it used to look like that, like solid, but they had to mill ½ an inch off. Then we took a 90-degree elbow, cut one side off, and then welded it to the back of this just to get it to fit in between the firewall, which is like right there. And I've called Fast several times, and believe it or not, they can't even tell you how long their fuel rail is. And I can't find the length anywhere on the internet of a fast fuel rail. So this one measures out to 15.5. This one measures out to 15 inches. And when I called Fast, they said, oh, it's probably about 16 to 18 inches. Well, gee, thanks. That doesn't help me out. God. So if it is 16 inches, that's not going to work. Simply because there's not enough room. So I'm going to see now. Holley can't tell me how to mount this to here. I called K-Tech. They can't tell me how to get it to work. Fast can't tell me how to make the Holley fuel rail work on here. So it looks like I'm going to be the guinea pig once again for you guys. And hopefully I could solve this mystery, whether or not the Holley fuel rails can work on the fast intake manifold. Okay, so I took one measurement already. So from this bolt hole to this bolt hole is was 8 3/4. So from this bolt hole to this bolt hole is also 8 3/4. These holes are for the bolts that will secure this to the cylinder head, so obviously these have to be the same on both manifolds, but I didn't know if these mounting points for the fuel rails would be the same. So far that works out. The issue is probably going to be is like the height, so that to make sure that the fuel injector is sitting up and properly in the fuel rail and down and in the intake manifold properly. So that's probably going to be the issue. To make this Holley fuel rail fit on a stock LS3 intake manifold, I had to buy these spacers over here. I got them from K-Tech. I don't remember the size. I'll take a measurement with my digital calipers when I get this unbolted. So let me unbolt one of these fuel rails. Let me take some rough measurements and let me just set it up. Let me see how it fits, and then I'll be back. Alright guys, so I took the fuel rail off. This is the driver's side fuel rail, and I added the spacers just as it was sitting on the stock manifold, and it's too high. As you can see, it doesn't even make contact with the injector, so that's not going to work. Those are 12 millimeter spacers, so about ½ an inch. Never mind the extra spacers, I just don't have the right hardware, so that's not going to work. So if I take the spacers out, let's see what happens. Okay, so I took the 2 spacers out, and as you can see, so it's resting on the where it should be, but still the fuel rail is still sitting too high, so that's not going to work. So I've been at this for a while. So let me just let me show you guys what I'm thinking to do. I'll be back. Okay, so here's something you can do. Hold on. Since this needs to go down more, if you have like some type of mill or lathe, I'm not sure what would be the right tool to do this, but I don't. You could just cut a groove. So basically you would just need to remove like that. You could just cut a groove into it on both sides, and then that'll lower the fuel rail, let it go down more. But I don't have that. So I'm probably going to have to make my own brackets. And that's what I've been doing for the last like hours, figuring out how to do this. So give me a second, I'll be back. Okay, so now the fuel rail is sitting properly on top of the injectors. Basically the injectors are just touching the top here, and the injectors are fully seated in the injector port that is molded, that is casted into the intake manifold. And the way it's sitting perfectly level with the ground. Like this one here on the stock intake, that's perfectly level with the ground. So what I'm going to have to do is very simple. It's basically just make an L-shaped bracket like that, sort of. Just make an L-shaped bracket. And that should work. Now be careful if you're going to try this, because the injectors are sitting naturally where they want to fall based on how the port is molded, casted into the intake manifold. So if you make a bracket, be careful that you're not pushing it outward. See? So they want to sit like that. So try not to kick them out like that. So I did some measuring. So from the center of that bolt hole to the wall here, this flat spot is 0.43 inches. So what could I use to make a bracket? Well, I was thinking to try to use the ones it came with. But this is 1/8 inch thick, and it would be hard to get it to bend in the exact spot. So then I went to a little scrap pile of metal I have, and this is from my a little one of those like baby gates you put across like a doorway, and it didn't fit, so I had to cut it. I had to put several of them around my house, and I just kept the pieces. But right here I could just use these pieces. They got the nice L shape cut into them here. What is wrong with this fucking thing? So I think I'm going to try with that end right there first, actually. I could just cut it off and we'll see how it goes. So it's sitting where it wants to sit, but I can't use the Holley brackets that it came with. And there's not enough room if you wanted to like put a piece of metal under it and then bend it up, sort of like an S shape, you know, like this, like this, like this. It's just not enough room. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the L-shaped bracket and then just tap into this side here. 2 bolt holes. And that should work. Alright, so let me cut this thing up and we'll see how it goes. I'll be back. Wish me luck. Alright guys, so this is how I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to start off with this smaller piece rather than that one. See how it goes. Alright. Alright, so I got it cut down to, these are 7/8 of an inch wide. I literally just have to cut it like this. And then I'll have 4 L-shaped brackets. Yeah, so that'll work. Alright, now I just gotta figure out the best and fastest way to cut it like this. Damn, I wish I had a bandsaw. You know, I tried looking for one several months ago, but everything you see is made in China. And I always try my best to buy American. I really do. But it is what it is. Alright, so let me just slice those diagonally, and then I'll have 4 brackets, and I'll be back. Alright, so there are my 2 L-shaped brackets. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so that's pretty much how it's going to look. Of course, I'll clean it up, paint it. I have to trim like 1/8 of an inch off the top to get it to sit against that flat spot. Got to trim that. After I do that, then I'll mark the hole. I'll drill this hole. Then I'll drill 2 holes on the side here. 1, 2. After I drill them, then I'll transfer the marks to here, punch it, and then drill it out and tap it. So that's how, hopefully that's how we get a Holley fuel rail on a fast intake manifold. Alright, I'll be back. Alright guys, so there it is. Well, that's not the final product, but it's sitting in the intake manifold. I'll just have to bend it a little bit inward towards here. That's it. And it clears that bump here. Alright. Just have to trim a little bit there. I'll make it a lot more attractive, but for now you get the idea. Alright. So let me get this more into a refined shape and I'll be back. Alright guys, so I've been working at this and I've got 2 brackets in place. They're sitting well. They are not pushing against this. They're sitting right where they want to sit. This is level with the ground. Now I'm gonna make 2 holes, 1, 2. And 1, 2 on the side, and then I will tap into that fuel rail. Give me 1 second. Alright guys, so I'm ready to drill some holes through the brackets and then into the fuel rail. Now some of you are thinking, oh well, you can't drill through the fuel rail, it's going to leak. No, because this round part here, this is where the fuel travels through and then it just comes out where the injectors are. So if you look here, you see where the bracket is? Get something to point here. Okay, so that's the underside of the bracket. So I'm going to try to drill right along here. This is like, I would say, this will give, if I tap it and drill, this will give it like 5/8 depth over there. And then over here, I'll try to come in between here, these 2 holes here. Worst case scenario, it'll have at least 1/4 of an inch over here of threads for the bolt to grab. And then on this one, you're probably only going to get like 1/4 of an inch because of where those bolt holes are. 1/4 of an inch on each side. So if I go 1 here, and then like 1 over here, but that's 1/2 an inch of threads with some red Loctite. That's not going to go anywhere. So that's it. I got the clamps in place so that when I undo the bolts, they'll stay where they are supposed to be. And that's it. Alright, so let me undo those 2 bolts and let me mark 2 holes and then start to drill. Alright, wish me luck, I'll be back. Alright guys, so it's getting late, but I've Got one bolt in, I tapped it, I threaded it. I mean, even with just one bolt, that doesn't even move. I didn't even do that side yet, the back. That's pretty much how you do it. So there is a way to get the Holley fuel rail to work on the fast LSXR intake manifold. Just takes some ingenuity. But this is very time consuming, I'll tell you that much. It's not really that easy. It's a take it off, fit it, measure, take it off, fit it, measure, measure, measure. Oh gosh. So this is pretty much taking me all day, believe it or not. So I'm just going to finish for now. Garage is a mess. All right, so that's it. All right, I'm done for today, guys. I'll be back. Welcome back, guys. So it's actually been about 2 weeks since my last clip. I ran into a problem. Big problem. So basically I showed you guys how you could make the Holley fuel rail work on the fast intake manifold. You just got to build some brackets like that, and then tap and drill, and then drill and tap the fuel rail. So it will work, but I ran into a problem. These are Injector Dynamics 1000cc injectors. I have intentions, well, I am upgrading my injectors. I'm going with Injector Dynamics 1330cc injectors because I'm going to be making more power, and these are basically maxed out. These are generally good for 1,000 wheel horsepower, but that's on pump gas. I run E85. The injectors wind up utilizing about 30% more fuel. So on E85, these 1000cc injectors are good for about 750, 800 wheel horsepower, and that's right where I am. And I do remember the tuner telling me that these were almost maxed out the last time we were on the dyno. So, like a dummy, I didn't think to contact Injector Dynamics or look up on their website the size of the 1330cc injectors. These 1000cc injectors are LS2 style injectors. They're basically just over 2 inches from O-ring to O-ring. They're just over 2 inches. The new injectors are LS3 style injectors, and those are the smallest. Those are just under 1.5 inches from O-ring to O-ring. So I did all this crap for nothing. I can't use this setup. So I went and I got the new injectors, and I went and I ordered the fast fuel rails. I was going to try and see if I could utilize these still, but it's not really working out. We're running out of space. So, and then I ran into problems with the fast fuel rail with the 1330cc injectors, even with the new injectors. So let me pull this off, let me put the new injectors in, and I'll show you guys what happened. Now let me just give you a comparison. So these are the Injector Dynamics 1000cc injectors. Those are the 1330 injectors. And as you can see, if you line them up, they're much smaller. So these are LS2 style, these are LS3 style. So here is the fast fuel rail. Let me set up 1 or 2 injectors here, and then I'll show you guys what happened when I tried to use the fast fuel rail. I'll be back. Okay, so I have 2 of the new injectors in place, ID 1330 injectors, and I got the fuel rail sitting on top. So I'm not applying any pressure. The injectors are sitting in the base of the port here, and the injectors are sitting up against the top of the fuel rail, inside the fuel rail bore. Not applying any pressure, nothing. So these are the brackets that come with the fast fuel rail. So I got the bolt in place here and here. I don't have the bolt up top. But do you guys see an issue already? Check that out. So now watch what happens when I put their bolt in. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I got their bolt in. So you see it's not lined up. It's sitting like this on the post there. Sitting like this. So then when you go to tighten it, watch what happens to the gap there between the fuel rail and the injector. You guys can already figure out what's going to happen. It's going to lift up. There it goes, see? See that? Now that came up quite a bit. But now the issue is the injector has like a 1/4 of an inch play upwards and downwards. And then the O-ring is close to the bottom. See right there? You can see the O-ring. So the O-ring is close to the edge of the bore there. And if I do the same on this side, of course the same thing happens. See that? It went up. So that's not good. I'm not comfortable having that O-ring right at the edge of the bore with 60 pounds of pressure or 70 pounds of pressure. I forgot what we have mine cranked up to. I think if anything goes wrong, that O-ring could get pushed out. That's way too close for comfort. Look at that. It's right at the edge. Literally. So I was not comfortable with that at all. So I call the experts. So first I call Injector Dynamics, and they said, that's, I can literally pull this up. I don't want to keep messing with these nice injectors. They're very expensive. $1,800. So I don't want to keep pulling them up and hitting them up against the rail. So I call Injector Dynamics, and they're like, it's okay if it has a little bit of up and down movement, but the O-ring shouldn't be right up against the edge of the bore there. So then I call Fast RHS myself. I speak with one of their technicians, and I say, listen, this is what's happening. I'm not comfortable. And they're like, yeah, it really shouldn't have that much up and down play. So then they're like, oh, well, we'll send you a spacer kit. I'm like, you're going to send me? You're not going to charge me? No, we're just going to send it. I'm like, what's the partner? I want to see what this looks like. They don't show it on their website. But other speed shops sell this spacer kit. And it's basically just a washer and an O-ring. I don't like using any types of spacers on fuel injectors. I'm not comfortable with that. So I said, F that. I'll figure out a way how the hell to make this work properly. And that's what I did. Give me a second, I'll be back. Okay, so there is the fast fuel rail bracket. Basically the issue is that that hole just has to come down a bit. That's all you need, is that hole to come down. So I asked Fast, well, don't you have another bracket so that it works properly with LS3 style injectors? No, we don't. Really? So I made my own brackets. There you go. Out of 1/8 inch thick steel. I made 4 of them like that. And by doing that, the LS3 injectors now sit properly in the bore of the fast fuel rail. So that's all I had to do. However, that was rather hard to do, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm sorry. This is their bracket. Here's mine. So I have this side done, set up. You can see it works. But that's how I did it. I wound up making my own brackets. Just had to design a bracket with the hole down hard, a little further down. It was very hard to tap 1/8 inch thick steel with the junky Harbor Freight tap that I have. It's very hard to do that. That was probably the hardest part. And then it was also hard to bend the steel to get it to like a, it's hard to explain. You have to get the steel to bend the fold like this, nice. If you know, I just basically put a 2 inch wide, 1/8 inch thick piece of steel stock that I have down right there in the middle. I clamped it here and I knocked it over with a hammer, just hitting it, but it's hard to get it to fold over perfectly. Like it'll want to roll this way or roll this way. And then if you do that, then these don't sit flush against the side of the fuel rail here. So I spent maybe, honestly, 12 hours making these 4 brackets. So watch what happens when I tighten the bolts on my brackets. They don't move up or down. The fuel rail sits right where it wants to. Finish tightening these up. So, another modification, I did a test fit already, and this does fit, it clearances the firewall. Well, you're saying like, whoa, the back of the manifold's over there, so of course you have all this room. No, because there's a giant bulge out the firewall right here. So you have to buy this expensive low profile 90. It was $65. That's the part number, that's who makes it. This is the lowest profile 8AN 90 I could find out there. I was looking at banjo fittings, but they were just slightly wider. This is 1 1/16 inches. The narrowest banjo fitting I could find in 8AN was 1 1/4. So this clears the firewall. So finally I've got the injectors sitting properly. And again, the key to this is the fuel rails are sitting where the fuel injectors are sitting where they want to sit. The fuel rail sitting where it wants to sit. And the brackets are sitting flush against the sides here. And it's not torquing the fuel rail outwards or inwards. That's exactly where I wanted to sit. That was one reason why it takes a long time to do this, to figure out where to put the holes. These sit a little crooked like this. It's not perfectly level with the ground. The Holleys sit straight up and down level with the ground, but the fast ones sit a little bit on an angle like this, inwards. What else was I going to say? Alright, so we got a $1,000 intake manifold, and if you take your car to a shop, and if you have a system, a setup close to what I do, you're probably going to have to spend another $1,000 just to get this on there. So I've got $1,000 here. I've got, what, $250 for the fuel rails, approximately, $1,800 for the injectors, $65 for the low-profile 8AN elbow there. And then you're going to have to spend $102 to get different fittings for your steam vent kit. And then I had to spend, what was it, like $50 for the 2 Earls LS steam vent port adapters. So if you took this to a shop and had them customize and make these brackets, it's going to run you. Between the brackets and all these extra parts, you're going to wind up spending another $1,000. So just be prepared. This does not just bolt on a C6 Corvette if you have a similar setup to what I do. Now, the crossover tubes go usually from here to here. And then because of the way the manifold is designed, all of the LS manifold, the fuel rail on this side, on the driver's side, sits closer to the firewall. So the fuel feed usually comes on that side. So you can now, if you just get this fitting, you can have your fuel feed come in through this side, through the driver's side, instead of looping all the way over there. But if you have a return style system like I do, so my feed goes over there, and then the return goes over there, and the crossover goes over here. So that's it. So hopefully in the next video, I could get this in place. I got to put the heat shield underneath here that I bought. I'll set up the steam vent kit. And that should take care of the intake. Put the throttle body on. Well, actually, I'll probably leave the throttle body off for now. And then I was going to make a lot of changes here. I still might. Let's see what happens. I have other parts I have to put on that I haven't even discussed or showed you guys. I was going to make a lot of changes here, but let's see what happens. We're just running out of time. There's too many damn delays with this manifold. There was so many delays, you know. I had at least 6 weeks of delays with this damn manifold. Oh well. Alright, so I guess that's it. I know I'm forgetting something, but that's it for now. You know, if I had the proper tools, it wouldn't have taken me so long. I don't have a brake, and I didn't have a damn bandsaw. But a bandsaw and a brake would have helped out tremendously. I was basically using an angle grinder and a grinder, this grinder right here, and then a little 90-degree air grinder too that I have. So that's it. So I just got to clean these up. Maybe I'll just leave them raw like this, get them as shiny as I can, or paint them black. But you know what? After all the time I spent on them, if I paint them black, you're not going to see it. Alright guys, that's it. I'm just rambling. Alright, I'll be back. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.